Hi, I'm Dr. Evans here at Coastal Animal Hospital, where we make your and your pet's life better. Today we're going to conclude our three-part series on pet food, the new religion, and kind of provide you with some more information on how to choose a good pet food. Because if you remember watching our previous two videos, we talked about raw food diets and why we don't recommend those, as well as then byproducts and grains and why that's an overblown, kind of hysteria thing. But now we're going to try to bring it all together and help you figure out and navigate a bag of pet food and how to pick one out from a store, because it can be really confusing, and because there's so much marketing material that goes into it, and it's hard to kind of read through all that BS to come up with the right answer. So reading labels, this is the hardest part, because everything on that bag is designed to market to you. So the first thing somebody will do is, will even go to the back of the bag. They want to read what's in that ingredient list, but realize also that ingredient list is a marketing tool that they're using for you. And one of the biggest things that they've started doing is making meat the very first ingredient. And that's how people will make that decision is, meat's the first ingredient. This is a better diet than this food, because they don't have an even chicken meal until it's the fourth ingredient down on the list. Well, I hate to break it to you, but that means absolutely nothing. So meat being the first ingredient, and if you look at those two bags, the order of the ingredients is based on weight. And so it means that the most weight of that diet is going to be chicken or beef or whatever that meat is. And while on the surface that sounds good, you have the next bag of dog food, which has chicken meal as the fourth ingredient. And so it seems obvious to choose the diet that has more actual weight of meat in it. But the problem is, if you look at the actual protein source or protein content of both of those foods, they'll be identical. And the reason is because when you have chicken meal, it's the same thing as chicken, but they've just removed all the water from the chicken breast. So if you have a chicken breast, it's full of meat, but it's also full of water. And in order for them to actually create a kibble out of that, they have to dehydrate that and turn it into a meal, and then make that kibble out of that. And so it's actually, you're paying for all the water weight, or they're just putting it up there with all the water weight on that first bag with meat as the first ingredient. But chicken meal being the fourth ingredient is actually that same amount, that same volume of protein from chicken. It just has all the water already extruded out of it, and it's made into a more digestible form, which is this meal. So you're getting the same thing, whether it's the first or the fourth ingredient, and hate to break it to you, choose either one, it's going to be the same in the end. But again, it's a way that they can market to you to make you think that this is a better, more natural bag of dog food. And that's the other part of it too, is that the protein content, a lot of those guaranteed analysis, hard to even know what they mean, because a crude protein is just a calculated value based on the total nitrogen amount in the dog food. It means nothing about how digestible it is, how much they can absorb from that, and that really comes down to the quality of food that you're getting. And one of the main reasons why we recommend actually sticking with a larger brand, a bigger brand of dog food, because they actually have a lot more data on the digestibility and bioavailability of these nutrients that they put in their food, versus a smaller, more mom and pop boutique brand, which might not have the resources to actually study that and actually look to see how much is available. So after reading the labels, the most important label you can read, and this is something that I want you to focus on when you look at a bag of food, there'll be something called the AAFCO feeding statement. And it'll be on every bag of food, but it's really hard to find. It's a tiny little thing in all the other noise that's on there. But what you're looking for on there is a statement, and that feeding statement will say this diet is formulated to meet the requirements for growth, lactation, gestation, or formulated to meet all life stages, or formulated for adult maintenance. So this food, if it says for all life stages, it's a food that you can feed to a pregnant dog, a lactating dog, a puppy, or an adult dog, or a senior dog. It's actually good for everybody. The problem with that is that when you feed that to an adult dog, that's a lot of energy. There's a lot of calories that are required for growth. There's a lot of calories that are required for lactation. You know, that's a huge energy demand. And so when you're feeding that to an adult average dog who's kind of sitting around your house most of the day, they're gonna get fat. And that's why there's so many fat dogs out there. I think they're feeding the wrong diet because it's formulated to be good for everybody, but it isn't actually good for adult dogs. So I prefer you to look for a food if you have an adult dog that says feeding, this is formulated to meet the requirements for adult maintenance. And that is a more appropriate diet for your dog at home if they're an adult. If they're a puppy, I want you to find that says something for puppies. If they're a large breed puppy, it should say for large breed puppies. They're gonna have very specific nutritional differences between them. And again, just trying to make sure your pet is getting what they need at the right stage in their life. So looking for that AAFCO feeding statement is really important. Then, you know, there's the debate on what should we feed our dog, home cooked versus raw versus commercial. Again, see our previous post about raw diet. We don't recommend that. Home cooked is good. I think that there's a lot of benefit to that. The problem with home cooked is that it's really time consuming, and there's a lot of nutritional deficiencies that can develop because of that. Again, there was a study that showed that something like 80% of home cooked diets were inadequate in 1 or 2 nutrients. So it can be good, but just make sure you're doing it right. We do recommend consulting with a veterinary nutritionist. We eat a really varied diet as people, so we're always getting different, you know, fruits, vegetables, etc. And you know, we've really evolved to eat that. Dogs can do well on that, but you know, if we kind of tend to get into a routine with them, and if we're just feeding them the same couple of things over and over and over again, they can actually get nutritional deficiencies, and that isn't ideal. Home, or the kibble that you can get from a store, I mean, that is made to be what they need day in, day out for the rest of their life. So it is really important to get a good kibble where they're actually doing testing on it to make sure that everything is in there that they need. And again, why we recommend using some of the larger brands than some of the boutique ones. But the commercial diets are really, really good. Back in the 80s, there was actually a disease called generic dog food dermatosis, and there was all these dogs getting these terrible skin lesions because they were on these generic brands of dog food. And it turns out they were just deficient in a lot of different nutrients and minerals. So this is where government regulation came in there and actually improved the industry. And now, you know, I've never seen a case of that because it doesn't really exist anymore here. Dog foods have really come a long way, and they're really an easy and cost-effective way for us to keep our dogs. So when you go to a pet store, how do we pick a commercial diet? There's a couple things, you know, for the most part, almost all the dog food diets out there are good and they're fine, and you can just choose one and they're gonna be okay. Again, I do recommend one of the larger brands to make sure that they are, you know, there's 1 million dogs on that food, so they'll know if there's a deficiency, they'll be able to find it quickly and identify it, versus a boutique brand which only has, you know, a smaller number of dogs, so deficiencies might not be as readily apparent. But ask that pet food company, do they have a vet nutritionist on staff? How are they formulating their food? Do they make their food in their own plants? A lot of pet foods will have another company make their food and they just slap their name on it. And that's actually one of the problems with Blue Buffalo. When they first started, you know, they were making all these wild claims about grains and byproducts, see our last one, and villainizing every other pet food company, but they weren't making their own food at all. So when somebody actually tested their food, they found grains and byproducts and all these other things in their food that they say weren't. And Blue Buffalo had probably no idea because they weren't in control of their food, and they were just, again, putting their name on something that they weren't making. So recommend going with a company that makes their own food in their own plants, so they have more control over the final product. Ask where they source their ingredients. Do they get their ingredients from the US? I'd only recommend getting foods that were made that source their ingredients from here, as well as make their ingredients here, and are not importing them from overseas. But really the biggest thing, as I said, they're gonna like it, or they're gonna do fine on it. You need to find a food that they like, that they eat readily, they do well on, their coat looks good, their stools are normal, they eat readily, and a food that you like. I mean, does it also fit with your take on the world? You know, is it organic? Is it, you know, whatever that is? You just like the color of the bag, you know, just find one that you like. It's easy to get, and they're going to do well. Some brands that we recommend, again, you know, Wellness, Nature's Choice, Natural Balance, Purina Pro Plan. You can go to Costco and get the Kirkland brand dog food, and dogs do great on it. So there you have it. And I mean, it's not as complicated as what people like to make it out to be. But again, you're getting hit with a lot of information at dog park, at the pet food stores. There's, you know, their employees are trying to sell you on everything on earth. And your uncle at, you know, Christmas dinner probably has a strong opinion about it as well. But just realize they probably have no idea what they're talking about. There's a lot of bad information out there, and hopefully this clears some of that up for you. If you do have any questions about any of this, feel free to give us a call. Visit us on the web, sdcoastalanimal.com. Call us at 760-633-2254. Once again, I'm Dr. Brian Evans here at Coastal Animal Hospital. Till next time.